Predicting and managing the occurrence of AMD to minimize risk to human and environmental health is one of the key challenges facing the mining industry. This is because any type of mining, quarrying, or excavation operation that exposes minerals to water and air has the potential to generate water pollution. That is why the potential risks of contaminated mine drainage should be fully evaluated before mining begins. The primary focus should be on prevention or minimization rather than collection and treatment. While the cost of active management of sulfidic waste during operations to prevent the inception of acid and metalliferous drainage can be significant, it is often small in comparison with the long-term cost that could be incurred to retroactively implement control and treatment strategies. Leading practice in this area continues to evolve. There are no quick fixes or one-size-fits-all solutions to AMD problems, and specialist expertise is often needed to develop the most appropriate management strategy. Despite examples of leading practice throughout the industry, leading practice principles for the management of AMD risk are not universally understood or applied. This morning, we're going to talk more about AMD, its risks, its types, its treatment, and prevention, only here at Into the Mine.
Good morning, viewers. Welcome to our show this morning. For today's discussion, we'll be joined by two students from the BS Mining Engineering program of Mindanao State University Iligan Institute of Technology. They are Ms. Georgie Ocampo and Mr. Jekres Vasquez. Ms. Georgie, what are you going to talk about this morning?
I'm going to talk about the overview of leading practice for the preventing AMD and characterizing mine material and predicting AMD.
All right, that's interesting. What about you, Mr. Jekres?
I'm going to talk about assessing the risk posed by AMD and its prevention.
Okay, but before anything else, to give our viewers the background of the mining problem that we're going to talk about this morning, let's get to know more about AMD first.
Acid metalliferous drainage and its three types. Acid and metalliferous drainage is used to implicitly recognize that not all problematic drainage from the oxidation of sulfide minerals is acidic. The first type is acid mine drainage, has acidic pH, moderate to elevated metals, and treated for acid neutralization and metal and sulfate removal. Neutral mine drainage has near neutral to alkaline pH, low to moderate metals, and may have elevated zinc, cadmium, manganese, antimony, arsenic, or selenium. Has low to moderate sulfate and treated for metal and sometimes sulfate removal. Saline drainage has neutral to alkaline pH, low metals, and may have moderate iron, moderate sulfate, magnesium, and calcium, and is treated for sulfate and sometimes metal removal.
Now that we know what is the difference when we use acid mine drainage to acid metalliferous drainage and the types of AMD, the question now then becomes is how do we determine that there's an already production of acid metalliferous drainage? This is where we start our discussion of the visual indicators of acid metalliferous drainage. When we say visual indicators, these are indicators that can be seen by our naked eyes, which we see that at some point there's an already accumulation of your acid mine metalliferous drainage to some parts of the bodies of water, maybe it be in river systems, or may it be in our tailings pond, or may it be in lakes, for example. The first indicator is the red colored or unnaturally clear water. So in this picture, you can see a large pool of red colored water, which is caused by acid mine drainage because of the leaching of acidic minerals from earth, which is exposed to water or air during your mining operation. So this is the site of a former copper mine that was closed in 1960s in Mackaldar, Kenya. The second visual indicator is an orange-brown iron oxide precipitates in drainage lines. There are three main reasons that caused this precipitation. The first one is the oxidation of the iron by certain bacteria, predominantly on the outside of the organisms. The second one is the auto-oxidation or chemical change and precipitation with subsequent accumulation of the colloidal iron on the sticky surfaces of bacterial slimes. The last one is when bacterially precipitated iron from complex soluble organic iron compounds. The soluble complex before precipitation may be either ferrous or ferric iron. Now, the most effective iron precipitating bacteria in drain pipes or in drainage lines have been groups consisting of lolamids. These are your Gallionella, your Leptothrix, and your Sphaerotilus. The third indicator is the dense coatings of green algae filaments on the bed of a stream with unnaturally clear water. In a series of stream experiments done by Elwood and Mulholland in 1989 and Baker and Christensen in 1991, it was found out that benthic mass of green algae greatly increased as pH decreased to 5.0, while an increase in the availability of aluminum caused by acidification can also result in an increase in green algae according to Bogosia and Timogamitum or Turner in 1991. The fourth indicator is the death of fishes or other aquatic organisms on mixing AMD when receiving water. The reason for this is because of your dissolved oxygen concentration, which is probably the most important single variable that influences the well-being of aquatic organisms. So when your dissolved oxygen concentrations are low, fish, shrimp, and other aquatic life suffer stress that can result in their slow growth, susceptibility to disease, or even death. And the main major factors that cause low DO concentration at night are dense plankton blooms and high accumulations of organic matter in sediments as well. So the main reasons for this is the accumulation of high inputs of nutrients, organic matter in feeds and fertilizers, and also your acid metalliferous drainage. The fifth indicator is the precipitate formation on mixing AMD with groundwater inputs into stream channels. The saline groundwater formation involves evaporation, condensation, hydrolysis, dissolution in evaporated salts, and mixing of groundwater with different qualities and hydrochemical compositions. Brackish water and saline water are the result of mixing between fresh and highly saline waters in deep groundwater based on the hydraulic conditions and the dispersion effect. So these circumstances creates this precipitate formation on the area where your groundwater and your acid metaboliferous drainage meets through mixing. The sixth indicator is the poor productivity of revegetated areas. The reason for this is your revegetated areas are areas that were once part of the mining operation, but two, this is where also your tailings or your waste rock dumps were dumped or located as well, wherein you cover it with soil and then plant vegetation on it as part of the rehabilitation program. However, still there's a chance of oxidation and hydrolysis due to the inception of your oxygen and inception of your water through those rock dams where we're covered by your soil, for example. So it's still creates sulfuric acid that affects the growth of these vegetation in these revegetated areas. The seventh indicator is vegetation dieback or soil scalds. This is the same reason with what I've discussed in the sixth indicator. However, this is specifically talks about copper toxicity that happens within the soil cover, which overlain by moisture retention and erosion resistant layers and stabilized with your vegetation. However, areas of vegetation dieback on soil covers were shown to be the result of your copper toxicity in the soil covers and acidified and contaminated with copper by capillaries of water from pyritic waste immediately underlying the soil capping. Over time, the surface soil on areas with progressively deeper tapping is being contaminated, resulting in a gradual expansion of the bare area, which results to the dieback or soil scales of your vegetation. Now that we know the different visual indicators of acid metalliferous drainage, it's time to know how do these things are produced. The generation of acid or H+ occurs typically when iron sulfide minerals are exposed to both oxygen from air and water. This process can be strongly catalyzed by bacterial activity under the right conditions, your acid pH, your availability of nutrients, and your oxygen. So the complete oxidation of pyrite to produce sulfuric acid, for example, and an orange precipitate, ferric hydroxide, happens in two cave processes. The first one is the oxidation of sulfide to sulfate, and the second one is the oxidation of ferrous iron to ferric iron and subsequent precipitation of your ferric hydroxide. So how do your NMD or your neutral metalliferous drainage is produced? Here, acid generated from your acid mine drainage is completely neutralized by the dissolution of common carbonate minerals such as your calcite, your dolomite, anchorite, and magnesite, which means that there is a neutralization process that occur that can lead to the precipitation of metals such as your aluminum, copper, and lead, and thus the removal from the drainage itself. Near neutral pH, concentrations of elements such as your arsenic, your cadmium, your manganese, nickel, and zinc can remain elevated, resulting to NMD or neutral metalliferous drainage. The second one is your saline drainage. So in situation in which acidic drainage is completely neutralized by local carbonate resources, and the resulting drainage contains no significant residual concentrations of metals, the potential remains for drainage to be a salinity issue by virtue of elevated concentrations of magnesium, calcium, and your sulfate. Nevertheless, sulfate salinity can be an important early indicator of developing AMD at mine sites and may require similar management strategies, that is, control of the sulfide oxidation. Now let's go to the sources of our acid metalliferous drainage. The first one is our waste rock dumps. So any unsaturated zones of sulfuric waste rock are susceptible to oxidation that creates or that produce our acid mine drainage. So what happens here to avoid this is waste rock may be co-disposed with tailings or be returned to a pit or mined out underground workings where it may be partially or wholly empty, may seep from the toe of the waste rock dumps or migrate beneath it into groundwater. This can have adverse impacts on water quality during operations and after closure. The second one is ore stockpiles. These are smaller than waste rock dumps, however, sulfide concentrations can be higher than those of weights. That's why it's also one of the major reasons of your the production of AMD. The next one is the low-grade ore stockpiles. These may be present for decades depending on metal prices, so it can be a potentially long-term AMD source. So companies stack these low-grade ore because of the demand of the market. Maybe there's less demand of these ore at the moment. That's why it's less likely economically valuable for the mine. So they used to stack this and wait for the time wherein the demand increases and the prices. The next one is tailing storage and facilities and dumps. So AMD generated in tailing storage facilities can adversely affect both surface water and groundwater quality on and off site. So tailing storage facilities and dams are used to prevent your acid mine drainage from leaking to groundwater from bodies of water such as your river or streams. And this is where also these AMD are treated by the use of your neutralization process, by the use of your alkaline materials. The next one is pits and open cuts. So basically, this contains sulfuric minerals that have the potential to generate AMD eventually because of the exposure of air and your water. That's the reason for the oxidation and the hydrolysis and the production of and accumulation of your acid mine drainage. The next one is underground mines. Here, wall rock and underground workings are similar to those for open pits, in which sulfides exposed to air as a result of dewatering are a potential source of AMD, which this can affect the quality of water that is collected underground and reused, treated, or discharged during operations as well, and make it harmful for the workers that could potentially affect the mining operation as well. The next one is the heap and dump leach piles. So heap leaching of low-grade base metal sulfide ores is gaining favor as this technology matures and the size of operations increase. So the presence of an engineered low permeability liner underneath a leach pile allows all drainage to be collected during the commissioning and after closure, facilitating the management of your AMD, so to prevent from suscepting to the groundwater, which makes it harmful as well. The next one is construction materials. So use of sulfide containing rock for construction has resulted in disseminated sources of AMD across mine sites, cause a significant operational water management issue, and is especially likely to increase the cost of cleaning up and rehabilitating the site at the end of the mine's life. So it is important to know the content of or the composition of this waste rock or tailings from our operations that we eventually or that mining corporation eventually used for construction inside the operation, because this might be the main cause of AMD, which more likely makes it harder for the operation or for the company to control it or to rehabilitate the area. To sum up, here are the factors influencing the generation of our AMD. We have the concentration, the distribution, mineralogy, and the physical form of the sulfide minerals, the rate of supply of oxygen from the atmosphere to the reaction sites by advection, convection, or by diffusion. You also have the chemical composition of pure water in contact with the reaction sites, including its oxygen content, the pH, whether it's ferrous-ferric ion ratio. You also have your temperature of the reaction sites, because temperature eventually affects the moisture of the particular area, especially in underground mines. The next is the microbial ecology of mineral surfaces, factors affecting the subsequent transformations and load of the initially produced AMD.
Overview of leading practice for preventing acid metalliferous drainage. The focus of this topic is on leading practice mine materials management to prevent the occurrence of AMD. The development of a mine proceeds through a number of phases, commonly described as exploration, pre-feasibility, feasibility, development and construction, operations, and closure. The understanding needed to assess and manage the potential for AMD should be gained as early as possible in the life of a project and further refined it as it proceeds. In pre-mining, few mineral resources are homogeneous and relatively little is understood about them and their host rocks in the pre-mining phases. However, it is important during the pre-mining phases that the project team, including geologists, mine planners, environmental scientists, and AMD experts, ensures that an adequate geological and geochemical database is compiled to clarify baseline conditions and the risk of AMD. First, in the mine phase in pre-mining is exploration reconnaissance. The action that can be done here is analysis of baseline surface water and groundwater levels and quality. Even if there is no visual indication of potential for AMD at this stage, further assessment is still necessary and should be extended during water quality analysis of baseline surface water and prospect testing. Next in exploration is prospect testing. The actions that can be done is to determine baseline surface water quality and groundwater levels and quality, and static geochemical characterization test work, including analysis of sulfur and carbon in drilled chips and outcropping lithologies. Here, baseline water quality data is collected to inform the subsequent development of water discharge criteria during operations and water quality objectives and criteria for closure, as they will need to accommodate previous disturbances on the site and or naturally occurring concentrations of metals and salts. Next is the resource definition and exploration. Actions can be done here. First is determining baseline surface water quality and groundwater levels and quality. Second, identification of geological, lithological types and mineral phases in the mineralized and waste rock categories using traditional methods. In this phase, if there is an indication of A&D potential, more focused investigations will be required in the next phases of project development. Or even if there is no indication of potential A&D risk at this time, further characterizations will be needed at the feasibility stage as better coverage of ore body and waste zones is obtained. Next in the exploration is pre-feasibility. Here, the action that can be done is to establish baseline water quality and environmental values of surface water and groundwater resources potentially affected by the project. This information is vital part of the environmental approvals process to develop preliminary site water balance model. Next in pre-feasibility is feasibility. The action that can be done here is to update water quality baseline as more time series data becomes available and develop and or refine site water balance model. This phase, all A&D data should be reviewed by a multidisciplinary team to develop a preliminary AMD management plan that is well integrated with the mining plan. AMD minimization strategies should be developed to a sufficient level of detail to allow realistic costings to be made. The manager or custodian of the characterization program and AMD management plan needs to be specified at this time to ensure internal accountability for the process. Next, in pre-mining is operations. Periodically revise site water balance model to incorporate changes to originally proposed water management plan and in response to changes in the scope of the mine plan is the first that can be done here. Second is to install groundwater monitoring bores in footprints and downgradient of waste rock dumps storage facilities to provide advance warning of the production of AMD seepage and impacts on groundwater. Implement surface water quality monitoring program to complement existing baseline program. AMD data for both waste rocks and tailings acquired as part of the ongoing mining operations should be imported into the waste block model, which should be regularly reviewed to ensure that the waste management plan is able to accommodate any significant changes, either positive or negative, to the site's A&D risk profile. Lastly, at the time of mine closure, most of the preparatory work, including the development of closure of objectives and criteria needed to protect the environment into the future, should have been done as part of a well-conceived AMD management strategy tested in field trials and implemented throughout operation phase. If that is not the case, there could be a significant risk of adverse impacts, including higher cost to retrofit solutions at such a late stage. As we can see in the figure shown, as time goes on, the number of options available for effective management decreases and the costs rise. Characterizing mine material and predicting AMD. The key aims of mine material characterization are to determine first the potential extent or magnitude of AMD generation, second the potential rate and timing of AMD generation, third the likely contaminants of concern and leachate produced from the oxidation of sulfidic materials. It is critical that a stage mine material sampling and geochemical assessment program is carried out to ensure that sufficient data is available at all phases of our project. In sampling for characterization, sample selection is a critical task and must be given careful consideration at all stages of a project. Samples should represent each geological material that will be mined or exposed and each waste type for current and projected mine plans. Here are the key sampling guidelines. First is a drill core and percussion chip samples that should represent no more than 10-meter intervals and cover individual geological types and ore types. Next is that each composite sample should not be obtained from more than one drill hole. And each sample should be approximately 1 to 2 kilogram, that the sample should be crushed to nominal 4 millimeter size, then riffle split to produce 200 to 300 grams for pulverizing to minus 75 micron. The minus 4 millimeter and pulverized splits should be retained for testing. In geochemical static tests, a core suite of standard procedures has been developed to assess the potential for AMD generation from sulfidic materials. In general, the procedures are designed to take account of both. First is the acid reactions, which are promoted by the oxidation of reactive sulfide minerals once exposed to atmospheric oxygen. Second is the acid neutralizing reactions, which result from dissolution of reactive alkaline minerals, mainly carbonates. AMD block modeling and materials scheduling. The likely geochemical behavior of or AMD classification of individual lithologies can be assessed from the results of the static test work programs outlined above. However, the likelihood of a site developing AMD issues and the effective implementation of options for managing them depend on understanding the quantity, distribution, and timing of extraction of each mine material type exposed to oxygen by excavation or dewatering. The next level of interpretation involves applying the static geochemical test data to the project design or configuration under investigation to estimate the timing of exposure of PAF materials to oxidizing conditions and to predict the potential extent of AMD generation. But what is an AMD block model? An AMD block model is a three-dimensional cellular representation of the level of AMD risk presented by different types of mine materials. The size of each cell relative to the lateral heterogeneity of the waste and ore determines how accurate the model will be. Each cell is populated with relevant material properties. Here is a visual representation of an AMD block model that shows the locations of materials of different types in different colors in the spatial context of the final peat shell. Oxide potentially acid forming is shown in yellow, potentially acid forming high reactive is shown in red, non-acid forming is shown in green, ore body shown in purple, and potentially acid forming is shown in orange. AMD block modeling is recommended and commonly used to generate production schedules by geochemical waste types. The development of block models enables an understanding of the timing of exposure of PAF materials. This can have significant implications for mine planning, as well as mine site operational management on a daily or weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. There are two field trials in scaling up of laboratory test results. First is pilot scale field trials. The main purpose of field trials is to scale up laboratory tests to better reflect site climatic conditions and particle size distributions and to overcome some of the limitations of laboratory scale tests, such as preferential flow paths through kinetic leach columns. Field trials may also be used to evaluate the effectiveness of proposed mitigation options, in particular the selective placement of waste, encapsulation, reagent blends, and cover systems. The scale of typical field trials ranges from 1 to 3. First is the barrel and grid scale leach test lysimeters, that is about 100 to 500 kilogram. In this figure, you can see a leach test lysimeter at the Fucam copper gold operation in Laos, operated by Fubia Mining. Second is the test pads. In the figure, we can see the test pads constructed at the Brukonga Legacy site in South Australia. And last is the trial piles instrumented for monitoring temperature, oxygen, hydrology, and seepage chemistry. The second field trials in scaling up of laboratory test result is large to full-scale field trials. It is a well-designed and monitored large to full-scale trials that allows the effectiveness of AMD control measures to be more reliably determined. Full-scale trials are much less prone to complications from the edge effects or preferential flow paths typically seen in laboratory or small-scale work. In addition, measurements at full scale can be used to test and refine models that incorporate parameters obtained from scale trials, leading to greater confidence in predictions of future behavior based on the data produced by the much smaller scale tests. Lastly, in estimating and modeling pollutant generation and release rates, there are no simple methods for extrapolating laboratory test results to large-scale mine site waste containment facilities to predict the concentrations of solute that will be produced. In the absence of such scale-up data, there are two complementary approaches that can be followed to estimate the load of solutes that may be produced by mine materials. The first approach is using empirical results from static and kinetic tests to infer the relative extents and rates of AMD generation from various domains across the mine site. This information can be vital for identifying high-risk mine material and for initially developing appropriate AMD management strategies. The second approach is using computer models with varying degrees of sophistication to simulate the complex physical and chemical processes that take place in mine materials when they are exposed to atmospheric conditions. Removal of sulfides from tailings to improve closure prospects in OK Teddy Mine in Papua New Guinea. So, OK Teddy Mining Limited is a large copper and gold mine that operates in Papua New Guinea. Due to the inability to establish conventional TSF near its mine site, it practiced riverine disposal of its mill tailings in OK Teddy River. In order to mitigate the AMD risk associated with riverine tailings, they operated a dredge at Baij that captures the sand-sized fraction of mill tailings, in addition to the sand that is derived from waste rock dumps, natural erosion, and pre-existing mine sediments. However, in the early 2000s, OTML management recognized from its ore block model that ore feed sulfur grades were scheduled to increase to 8% towards the projected end of mine life. The effect of this increase would have been to have raised the existing A&D risk to unacceptable level. In order to mitigate, OTML implemented the Mine Waste Tailings Project, or the MWTP, in 2008, where a tailings processing plant was built which aims to remove pyrite as a concentrate from a copper concentrator tailings, reducing the sulfur content of the tailings to at most 1% before being discharged to river. This plant works in a way that the pyrite concentrate recovered is transferred and stored subaqueously below the natural water table in dredge pits on the west bank of the OK Teddy. It was found out through modeling that during the dry season, the level of water table is higher than the surface of deposited pyrite concentrate. In addition to removing pyrite from the tailings, OTML adds limestone to the river system. This has been done through two pathways. Firstly, by addition of limestone to the failing waste rock dumps on the steep mountainsides of the upper OK Teddy system. Secondly, adding approximately 4,000 tons of additional limestone per day through the milling circuit at the concentrator. As a result, sulfur content of the discharged tailings was found to decrease since the time of implementation of MWTP. As you can see in the table, sulfur content prior to the year of implementation of MWTP is excessively high and decreases when the project was carried out. It was observed that the sulfur concentration at Baich has taken several years to decline following the inception of release of 1% sulfur tailings from the mine. The reason for the lagged response is that the material dredge at Baich is made up of combination of freshly released tailings and material with much higher sulfur concentrations that had been deposited into the 130-kilometer stretch of river upstream Baij prior to the MWTP. With the combination of the MWTP and the limestone addition, a marked improvement in the ANC to MPA ratio in dredge materials since 2004 was observed. A measure of the risk of AMD is the ratio of the ANC to the MPA calculated from the pyrite content of the sediment. This means that the greater pyrite content of the sediment indicates higher value in MPA, which also corresponds that there is a higher risk in AMD. An ANC to MPA ratio less than 1 indicates a highly probability of acid generation, whereas a ratio greater than 1 indicates a lower probability of acid generation where ANC to MPA ratio above 1.5 signifies a negligible probability of on the risk of AMD. It was found out that the ANC to MPA ratio has increased from a low of 0.6 in 2004 to 2005 to 2.3 in 2013 to 2014. This means that the OTML can rehabilitate the stockpiles with relatively little risk of acid hotspots developing on their covered surfaces.
Treatment of acid metalliferous drainage. The question here is why and when do we need to treat? So here are some of the factors. The first one is when the reuse of mine or processed waters is required in areas where the available water supply is limited. The second one is process or other critical equipments require protection from corrosion or from fouling by scaling. Water in pits or underground workings must be removed to regain access to an ore resource. Commercial metal recovery is a possibility, and groundwater is contaminated by a plume of AMD, and the plume needs to be remediated because eventually it affects the people. Basically, treatment technologies can be classified into two, your active or passive treatments. So AMD treatment system can be categorized as either active or passive. Common attributes of a passive treatment systems are no or minimal requirements for active. When we say active, the use of electric or diesel-less power pumping, and no requirement for the remotely powered addition of chemical reagents. Passive treatment, on the other hand, approaches can be economically attractive in the right circumstance, but have some significant limitations. These are best suited to the treatment of waters with low acidity only or low acidity loads and with steady flow rates. Let's know more about the active treatment systems. The first active treatment is the centralized treatment. Involves the use of a fixed water treatment plant or WTP to which acidic water is pumped or directed from one or more mine water bodies. The second treatment is in situ or at source treatment. So here, treatment becomes a more logical choice than centralized WTP for active AMT treatment when the cost of pumping and piping polluted water to a centralized WTP exceeds the cost of mobilizing a dosing system and neutralization a reagent to a polluted water body, according to Taylor 2005. Now let's go to passive treatment systems. The first one is the surface water. There are three basic classes of passive treatment systems for surface waters affected by AMD. These are the toxic and anoxic limestone drains or refill channels to neutralize low pH water. The second one is assisted chemical neutralization, in which the use of solar or water power to drive reagent dispensing system. And your wetlands, or the surface or subsurface flow through an organic matter substrate with or without added limestone. The second one is the groundwater permeable reactive barriers and natural attenuation. So permeable reactive barriers. These systems are barriers to the target solutes and not to the flow of water. So for AMD treatment application, this class of technologies comprises barriers in which one, sulfate is reduced to sulfide and metals are precipitated as insoluble sulfides, in which there is minimal risk of future reoxidation of the precipitated metal. The second is metals are precipitated as insoluble forms, for example, using crushed apatite to precipitate metal phosphates. These are also allows inorganic ions to reduce into insoluble forms, and nitrate is degraded by microbial or inorganic processes. Natural attenuation can potentially be used where applicable to control the contamination of groundwater by downward seepage of your AMP. This relies on the action of natural absorption and precipitation to remove most solutes from groundwater. The next one is the use of pit lakes. So the passive treatment of an established pit lake must be viewed as a very long-term strategy that will require substantial ongoing investment in monitoring and research as well.
I'm going to discuss about assessing the risk posed by AMD. Remediation to AMD is possible, but there are possible risks to be included. Toxic elements such as copper, cadmium, and zinc are often associated with acidic mine drainage, contributing substantially to its devastating ecological effect. In the Philippines, Rapu-Rapu Gold and copper and zinc mining project conducted treatment for AMD. Acid mine drainage represent one of the most serious, ongoing and long-term environmental problems that remains inadequately considered or addressed by the current information available on the Rapu-Rapu mine. AMD is a big issue on a particular mine that shakens the environmental status of the said area. So, mine site suggested to locate some treatment and risk in order to avoid the incidents. So, this is the Rapu-Rapu mining drainage. So, according to the AMD chemistry, pyrite from the mine, oxygen in the air, and water from humidity, precipitation or streams produces ferrous oxide, or what we called yellow boy, and sulfuric acid. We all know that sulfuric acid lowers the pH and increases the dissolved metals. So mine drainage from the Lafayette mines in Rapu-Rapu into the sea would undoubtedly affect local marine life. So Rapu-Rapu uses two AMD treatment, the passive and the active treatment. So passive treatment requires continuous inputs to sustain the remediation process. One of the famous passive treatment is the lime or the alkaline neutralization. We know that alkaline is another word for basic portion of pH range. It is put to the large silos near the stream and the river. So the alkaline neutralization is being put near the stream. So we proceed to the active treatment. Active treatment is a treatment relatively little resource into input once in operation. So the first treatment for the active is the limestone leach bed water, in which water is diverted to channels made of limestone, since limestone is an alkaline and acidic water is neutralized that flow through. Another passive treatment is the wetland enhancement. So researchers found that wetlands neutralize pH that removes dissolved metals. So microbial activity stabilize compounds and adding alkalinity to AMD. That's why wetland enhancement are being used in a mining company. Lastly is the gob pile removal or the reclamation. Gob piles are waste from the mining that secretes AMD by removing gob piles and restoring the land in order for it to be largely reduced in the risk of AMD. Next is identifying and protecting key environmental values. So guidelines for the protection of aquatic ecosystem are more stringent than those for drinking water, which in turn are more stringent than those primary industries and recreation. So aquatic ecosystem is an important part of humanity. It is one of the most affected area of AMD, so identifying and protecting the environment is important. Since aquatic ecosystems are likely to represent the highest use value of waters affected by AMD in the Philippines, further discuss about how different levels of protection are derived and applied as warranted. The water quality guidelines provide for three levels of aquatic ecosystem protection for sustained exposure to potential toxins. So first is the high conservation ecological value ecosystem, which is 99% of species to be protected. So second is the slightly moderately disturbed ecosystem, which is 95% of species to be protected. Highly disturbed ecosystems, from 80% to 90% of species to be protected. I will discuss the indicators species. We have three indicator species: the sensitive, moderately sensitive, and the tolerant. So lower pH and dissolved metals on drainage are stressful to the organisms. So each species has its own tolerance. So 5 pH below is severely stressful, especially sensitive species is negatively affected at pH lower than 5.5. So different life stages has different sensitivity and different responses to acid mine drainage. Example, fish has lower tolerance, while algae has adaptation to AMD. So sensitive species are stonefly, mayfly, caddisfly, water penny beetle, and the cimbella. So these species are sensitively affected by the AMD. Next, the moderately sensitive. Those species are crayfish, hellgrammite, dragonfly, and acanthidium. These species are moderately sensitive than the sensitive species. So third is the tolerant. This tolerant species can tolerate from below 5.5 pH. So they can live below 5.5 pH level. So metals precipitate when pH changes. So overall, neutralizing pH has a problem as the pH level higher metal precipitates and the precipitated metals covers the bottom of the streams that makes it unlivable. So As you can see in the picture, that when the pH increases, metals precipitated. So it makes the area unlivable to some organisms. So next is managing the tailings. So management of the tailings is very important. So one of the common uh, activity in managing the tailings is the conventional end dump waste rock, in which it is also a big factor for AMD. So as you can see in the picture, tailings are not intact and organized. Like possibly, if there is a rainfall, the tailings secretes AMD and water eroded to the stream. So it is it can cause a big problem. So it may cause acid mine drainage. To manage tailings, they usually do backfilling, a pit with tailings whereby the sulfidic material is maintained below the recovered water table level and the rest of the pit is filled with beneath material has the following intrinsic advantage over the free water surface. We all know that backfilling is a common activity in order to manage tailings. So, as you can see in the picture, tailings are being put in a particular area. So afterwards, backfilling is conducted to make sure that the tailings are organized and far from the risk of AMD. So next is soil cover system for waste rock and tailings. So in the Philippines, where typhoons are present, so a lot of mining company usually do soil covers where it limits the oxygen ingress and limit oxidation of the waste. So as you can see in the picture. So predicting pit lake water quality requires a coupled understanding of lake's water and balance the source of AMD and solutes that will affect water supply. Pit lake is considered as following geochemical mechanism like chemical mixing and mass balance, evaporative concentration, mineral equilibrium, sorption reaction, then reaction kinetics, gas exchange with the atmosphere, and reduction oxidation reaction. As you can see in the picture, groundwater inflows are generated and from precipitation recharge and tend to buffer short-term climatic changes, but long-term climatic changes will be reflected in groundwater inflow over the long term. So modeling of groundwater and climate processes is often used to predict final water balance in peat lakes. So the water quality of evaporative sink lakes is expected to show increase in acidity, metals, and salt concentration over time through accumulation of solutes introduced through groundwater inflows.
Thank you for that discussion, Ms. Georgie Ocampo and Mr. Chris Vasquez. And to the last part of our program, we are very honored to be joined by the most amazing doctor in terms of mining in the world. Today, we are going to be joined by Dr. Maria Jecresa Satanesa, a coal mine specialist from Colcog University, Virginia, USA. Good morning to you, Ma'am Jecresa. Welcome to the Philippines.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Host, for your warm welcome. And I'm really honored to be here.
All right, Doctor. What can you say about the monitoring, reporting, and the social license to operate in terms of acid mine metalliferous drainage?
Yes. In monitoring, reporting, and the social license to operate, it is essential that more comprehensive operational and post-closure monitoring records are produced by the industry and regulators to robustly demonstrate the successful management of AMD at risk sites over the longer term. Unfortunately, there are very few publicity available examples to demonstrate that mining practice is sustainable in this context. This situation is increasingly contributing to the lack of trust and hence withdrawal of the social license to operate, being exhibited by communities to proposals towards new mining projects in Philippines and overseas. It is further compounded by the existence of many highly visible legacy sites that fuel the connection between poor AMD mitigation and management in the past and current social opposition to mining. The types of monitoring are needed by companies operating sites at risk of post-rehabilitation. AMD should be prepared to conduct robust long-term post-rehabilitation monitoring programs with appropriate financial and technical provisioning and to undertake remedial works if and as required. The findings and implications from the monitoring programs are need to be clearly communicated. That will be all. Thank you.
All right. Now we are joined by Georgie Ocampo who discussed aerial characterizations and overview of preventing acid mine metalliferous drainage. Georgie, do you have something to ask to Dr. Jacresa Satanesa?
Yes, I have. Dr. Maria Jacresa, what are the preventions and mitigation technologies in AMD?
Yes, incremental improvements in assessing AMD risk will continue to be made as prediction methods are further refined and a better understanding is obtained of scaling from laboratory measurements to the field scale. Lessons will also continue to be learned about the design, installation, maintenance, and long-term performance of cover systems. While there is no single solution that will prevent AMD at all sites, it is clear that minimizing the ingress of oxygen into an oxidized waste rock by grounding up methods of construction combined with interlayer compaction to limit water flux is probably the closest to a universal solution for this AMD source. In the case of sulfidic tailings, maintaining saturation throughout the tailings mass is the most effective means for preventing oxidation over the long term. In drier climates, control of infiltration by store and release covers is likely be the most. That will be all. Thank you.
All right. Now, Dr. Maria Jacresa Satanesa, we are joined by a large number of audiences today. So, what are your message to everyone listening to the importance of prevention of EMD and how does it helps, for example, making mining operations sustainable in the future?
Well, for the bigger picture, the true value of a mineral resource in a sustainable economic development context will only be realized by preventing AMD before, during, and after mining operations. If this is not properly addressed, there will be continue to be large unprovisioned cost for closure towards the end of the project life, along with ongoing risk of environment and to reputation of industry. In addition to direct impacts of project finances, the cost to the industry of withdrawal, oh my god, of its social license to operate as a result of perceptions about past performance can be substantial, including length delays in project approvals or rejections of proposed developments. That will be all. Hi! Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Maria Jacresa Satanesa from Colcog University. And we also would want to thank the students who joined us today from MSU IIT. We have Mr. Jacris Vasquez and Miss Georgie Ocampo. And that concludes our show for this morning. This is Into the Mine.
It is essential. Sabay ka mo! Ay! Ano yung mabati ilagi? Thank you, Mr. Host, for your warm welcome. And I'm really honored to be here.
All right.
Yeah, when Harvey nakatawa. Huwag na nakatawa. Will only be released by preventing acid mine drainage before, during, and after mining operations.
I'd say released.
Huh? I release? Realize my... Habibi. Habibi. Magpapahula kayo, sir. Yes. Incremental improvements in assessing Gutom na rin ko. Gutom na ko, Jai.
So guys, welcome to our show today. Yan na.
Ano ko eh? Buong.
Yawan. Hindi na lang ito mga ano eh.
Sige no, padayon lang to.